My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Hello, everybody. Good evening if you are in Europe. Good morning, Vansh. We are with you today. There's no Damien this week on the ATP Weekly. I'm unbelievably happy to have you on board. How's going?
Yeah, going really well. Haven't done one of these ATP weeklies in a long time, so happy to be here.
Yeah, and it's actually been a pretty busy week, even though it's the week after a Grand Slam. And maybe at the beginning, it even felt like it could have been, some sort of boring week. But with Davis Cup, we always know that there's no boring stuff going on. And also Montpellier had, I think, some very nice stories. And I think that's where we are going to start, actually, from the ATP 250 tournament that was played in Montpellier. And I think we should start with the winner, who is actually a second ATP Tour title this year for Felix Auger-Aliassime. He had already won in Australia, the tournament in Adelaide, so the week before the Australian Open, and now wins the week after the Australian Open. Good start of the year. What are you making from this tournament, this run from him? Good signs, whatever. I think, of course, yes, when you win a title, it's always, of course, a great week. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on him and the week he had in Montpellier.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, title before Australia, title here, so 2 titles already, 10-2 on the year. I mean, it's a good start. Like Felix is certainly trending in the right direction after a couple of seasons where, let's say, he had some injuries, some disappointing results. So I was happy that all these matches he should be winning, and I was glad that he was able to, win them for the most part pretty efficiently. In the final, there was a little bit of a mental hurdle that he had to overcome against Kovacevic because he had a 2 set points in the second set tiebreak, and he couldn't convert those. Kovacevic hit a very good backhand pass, I think, to save one of them, which was one of the highlight shots of the match, and then then Felix double faulted in the next point, and then you thought, okay, this is now all of a sudden very complicated. It's a whole another match, and then he also had to save a break point at 5-all in the third.
Yeah.
So that was some clutch play by him to get out of that game, and then he dominated the tiebreak, but actually both the mini breaks were retrieved back, so he ended up having to, from 3-love became 3-2, and it was on Kovacevic's serve. But then he played those next 4 or 5 points really, really nicely and very patiently, and then didn't pull the trigger too early, which sometimes can happen with Felix. So it was overall a really good ending to his great week. And yeah, it was good for him to get a title as well to start the year outside of indoor hard courts, where he hasn't won a title outside of the 5 that he had indoors. So for him to get that, and I know he lost at the Australian Open from 2 sets to love up against Davidovich Fokina, but overall, like, the game is trending in a better direction. I saw a quote from Gil Gross on Twitter where he was talking about all the things that he's observed very closely that Felix has changed in his game, like his service motion and his pre-serve ritual is like a lot, it's cut down in like half, and so he's not like overthinking as much. I think he's like he's mixing up his second serve location a bit better, and so overall I think we're seeing some small signs. Let's see if it can continue.
Yeah, actually, I think in what had been some sort of just a solid week before today, very good showing, but nothing particularly scintillating, in my opinion, before before the final. But today it was actually, in my opinion, an very tough match, even on paper, because of how well Kovacevic was playing. Of course, we will talk about him, the win also against a top 10 like Rublev, but also the challenger title a couple of weeks ago. So winning many matches, starting from qualifying this week. So, he really got the momentum, and he showed today, because after a very tough start, Kovacevic really, found a way to make this match a really, really tight contest. So I feel like this match, even though, it has been probably, it has been the most difficult that he had, actually it's the best thing we take from him, also from some sort of mental side, probably also some throwback to the Australian Open. Who knows, maybe after losing the second set, because actually going back to the Australian Open, 2 titles, then some sort of a disappointing result at the Australian Open. Do you think this is some sort of a stain of on the start of his season, or just 2 titles, very good wins, game going in the right direction? So I we can just take the positives and maybe wait for the next big tournaments.
Yeah, I think that was certainly a missed opportunity at the Australian Open, because his 2 sets to love up. He had a lot of chances early part of the 5th set, if I remember correctly, as well. So, a little bit disappointing there, but overall, like, the game is trending in the right direction. So you'd hope that at least in one of the next 3 majors this year, that he can go on a bit of a run. Maybe Wimbledon, U.S. Open, maybe he can be in a quarterfinal, something like that, just to kind of show again that he's, let's say, closer to 2022 than the last couple of years, which have been rather, which he didn't quite meet the expectations, but the game itself, like when the eye test is showing me that he's trending in the right direction, and yeah, like, mentally, I think that's always been the question mark for me, because he's had the game. I think at times the backhand can hold him back, maybe, but he's,
today was very good, I think.
Yeah, today it actually won him the match at some points, especially in the 3rd set. It was, so, and sometimes double faults can creep in, and you can feel the nerves in his game in those really tight moments. He doesn't quite back himself, but I think he, these titles are good confidence builders. Like, so maybe when he's in a tight position in a 5th set in a major, he's gonna have more belief in himself.
Where do I want to go is he's here. Now he has won 7 ATP Tour titles. He's actually the 3rd most between players born in after 2000. So right after, of course, Sinner with 19 and Alcaraz with 16. And when we talk about him, of course, he's been a top 10 player. He's been in the ATP finals, and we talk about him as a player who, that's what I think, has what it takes to do another sort of quality jump, and start. Now he's 24, so trying to stay more consistently, at least close to the top 10, if not inside it. Are you expecting a lot from him this year, especially after those 2 titles? Because I think, of course, it's great to see him winning these titles. It's for sure a great confidence boost for him, great showing, fantastic weeks. But I also think we can expect from him something more in the big tournaments. So probably this year, we can start having bigger expectation by himself, especially if he stays fit. Even, I don't know, next week, for example, there's a possible round 2 clash against Alcaraz. So if that happens, can probably be, especially on some sort of courts and conditions indoor where he finds himself really well, probably a good test to see where he's at, and considering the expectations we can have for him.
Yeah, I think expectations are a little bit higher now after these 2 titles, and you want to see him perform well against the top players, and also in the 1000s, but more importantly the majors, because even in 2022 he had like the 1st round loss at Wimbledon, 2nd round loss at the US Open. Like, so he would go on these runs in February and October, and we know he can do that. But the question is, can he do it more times, in the bigger tournaments in between? And if he can do that, then he's like really okay. Like, now we can talk about him as like, okay, he can finish top 10. He can be, maybe finishing 10 and 20, between 10 and 20 is like a reasonable expectation given the way he started the year now. Like, because I do think like the last couple of years, even though he's been like that's not the norm for Felix. He's a better player than where he finished in 2023 and
I think so.
2024, like around 29. Like I think that's not an accurate reflection of his ranking. In some ways, actually, he was a little lucky to finish 29 last year because of the Madrid run in the final, and that kind of like actually saved his ranking a lot. But yeah, let's hope he can do something bigger in the bigger events. But I like that you mentioned the Alcaraz potential meeting because he's lost his last 4 times against Alcaraz, but they've been in really favorable conditions for Carlos, right? Like Indian Wells twice, and then Roland Garros last year in the 4th round, and then the Olympics in the semifinals. So yeah, if Rotterdam indoor
how the match
hardcourts
plays out.
Yeah, and with a lot of the points being sort of first 4 shots, like if he keeps up the level that he's playing right now, that's a dangerous match for Alcaraz on
Yes,
the
definitely.
surface.
Definitely, I think. And I mean, also I was saying how the match can play out, of course, if that happens. Because, of course, I'm not expecting a beatdown like at the Olympics. So if, scoreline would be like that, I'm pretty sure. But even if it's like 3-3 or something similar, probably I would be a little bit disappointing, especially because, I don't know, probably Alcaraz. I know that Rotterdam is not the fastest hardcourt, on tour. So probably it can even suit Alcaraz's game quite well. But still, I think there can be expectations, especially considering the form Felix is in, and of course Alcaraz still maybe trying to build a little bit. But yeah, I think we should, of course, talk about the runner-up of this tournament. Probably an even better story because, of course, the form he's started building in this month, and also this, of course, big run started from qualifying. He will be world number 75 next week. And it's, of course, Alexander Kovacevic. Fantastic match point saved. The big match point, which was played on Felix serve. And actually, Felix served well. Attacked probably not the biggest forehand of his life, but it was a solid attack, a solid approach. And I think that shot is kind of a picture perfect of his week. Very, very good week. And what can we expect from him? The next few weeks, of course, bigger rankings, so a help also for the entry list. What are you expecting in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good few weeks for him because he also won the Challenger in Portugal indoors. So it started here and it kind of has carried over. So that's good to see. I've always liked his ability on the one-hander because he can take it early as well. Like we saw this week, he can redirect it. He can step into the court and really go after it. He plays it with a decent amount of conviction, and he can the passing shots as well. He has a good slice, so he can stay in a lot of points with that shot, and that has to be the goal, to use that as a setup to get the forehand, and then also be bold with it when he can, like he was on that match point. So I think it's good. It's trending in the right direction. He was probably I probably had more expectations for him last year than I did, but he fell just a little short. There were some matches, for instance, that I watched him when he played Tiafoe in DC, and he had a few big chances there. But it was a little bit of a setback, slightly here. But so for him to steady the ship here, I think that's good because top 75 is like where he belongs. You watch him play this week, and you're like, he has the shot making abilities. He has the movement around the court. He doesn't serve that big, so that's probably one area that he can maybe improve the accuracy, improve the consistency of that delivery. But overall, like from the ground, I was pretty impressed by the way he handled Gofan in the first round, and then Rublev, especially the way he was attacking Rublev's second serve. He played with the right game plan, and he executed it really well, especially at the end of the sets when Rublev was coming back at him, and he had to save those 2 break points in like 4-all, 5-all in both the sets. So I was impressed with what I saw also coming through qualies. He there was no letdown in the final. He made it a very close contest. Actually, there's one forehand he maybe would want back at 5-all in the third. On the second serve, he like runs around the backhand, and the second serve unforced error on the forehand. it didn't quite work his way into that point, because I had a feeling like maybe with the way he was playing and the momentum, like he wins that point, maybe he serves out the match. But it's still a huge week for him. So yeah, overall,
Yeah,
like you said, I think he's an even bigger story than Felix because
yeah,
of
definitely.
first time in the
And
final.
also the sort of final that, I don't know, once the disappointment of losing a close match will fade away, he will truly be, I think, thinking like, okay, I beat, one number 10 in the semis. I played this match after all this run. That's where I belong. That's where I should play. And I also think that backhand is some sort of thermometer of his tennis, at least today in this matchup, because the first set I was a little bit disappointed in seeing that cross court, the backhand to backhand exchanges. He actually was very penalized in that first set, wasn't hitting that well. Felix was really able to dictate both with his backhand and actually turning on his forehand. And we know that once Felix, turns on his forehand from, the backhand side, hitting the inside out, and starting moving the opponent, that's what he prefers. So I thought that the match became, more and more competitive once he sorted that thing out. He started playing the backhand cross court with more, conviction, starting, of course, not letting Felix, turning around and hitting harder, as he was doing very, very, fine in the first set. So yeah, I think, plenty to be excited about, especially because, I don't know, I think like right now, it's also a good part of the year for him because of, the conditions where we are going to play. So let's really see what happens. I think it's, encouraging signs, of course.
Yeah. There's a good point also about the backhand, because when he's going after it and when he's not so tentative and he's forcing the issue a bit more, I find he's more often in control of the rally, getting the pattern of play that he wants. So if he's feeling good, the backhand, the backhand is one of the strengths. So I hope we see more weeks like this from him.
Yeah, and of course we have talked about the biggest win he had. It was in the semifinal, of course, against Andrei Rublev. Very convincing win. But I think we can also just watch a little bit what happened on the other side of the net. Rublev, we are in a little bit of weird moment for him because, we have talked a lot about his game and everything, but for actually 5-6 straight years, Rublev was truly up there. Whatever was happening in the tennis world, he was a certainty. And also in these tournaments and against these sort of players, of course, he played an opponent who was on fire. But it started happening more and more often. Of course, there was also a disappointing loss at the Australian Open. I know that Fonseca is, fantastic prospect, but still, considering Andrei Rublev, it's always very disappointing to lose a straight sets match in round one. A loss also in the opening round loss in the first tournament of the season. The end of the year was not convincing. Where we're at with his career right now, in which place he is, it's tough to say.
Yeah, it's tough because last year he still finished 8th, but of course a lot of that was the runs in Canada and Madrid that he won when he was really sick, and that's when we saw him perform at his best also mentally, because it was easier for him to do that when he was sick. And he made the one quarterfinal and he won Hong Kong as well last year. But these are the type of tournaments he was winning regularly, like Hong Kong and Montpellier. When now I think there's the pool of players who can threaten him and have a really good day against him is getting bigger. So that's a bit concerning that he doesn't quite really have another gear to go to when he's in trouble like that, and when he's getting his second serve attacked all the time, or he's getting rushed and he can't quite get back into points like against a Fonseca or like Morozhan. These are similar type of profile, really highly aggressive players who take their chances, and they're not Andrei's power doesn't bother these players at all, because they're just they're able to play on the front foot, especially when he's hitting those second serves in the middle of the box. There just isn't. And then the mental side of it as well is he can go dark on himself. Obviously, he's talked openly about that, his mental health struggles and depression and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think I'm sort of expecting him to finish somewhere between 8 and 15 in the world, but rather than 5 to 8, it's kind of, then the tier just below that now, just because of how many players are like coming up and how he's not winning these titles regularly anymore. I mean, maybe he can change that. On the clay, there'll be so many more chances. Maybe Roland Garros, he can be back in another quarterfinal. Like, there's still, you know, signs that maybe. I mean, there's still hope that maybe it can turn it around, and it's just a phase, and it's still just the start of the year. But certainly not the kind of year that he was hoping for. Like, not the start he was.
Yeah, let's say that probably the concept of also evolving as a player, it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Even, players like Alcaraz and Sinner always talk about improving. I don't know, probably if improving is the most exact word, but probably evolving, trying to keep up with the pace of the tour, the new players that are coming up. Because actually, I mean, everybody especially in the top 50, 60, 100 is studying, of course, and, keeping the game up. And so it's sort of a weird place, and actually many players of his age are having this sort of weird place, because about that generation we are having, I feel, some players like Rublev, I don't know, Tsitsipas, Medvedev himself, who are, have broken into the top 10, let's say, if not top 5, quite early in their career. And now they are kind of struggling, and there are others like Deminor, Paul, Fritz, who are some sort of at the top right now. They have reached the top of their potential once they were, 26, 20, if not 27. So I don't know. It's a bit weird judging right now this generation of players, because I'm watching two different and kind of opposite trends between those players.
Yeah, that's very true. Because when they were making the next gen finals and they were 18, 19, or making the ATP finals the next year, and then they're in the top 10 for 5 years in a row, like, you kind of thought, maybe they also thought that their time would come eventually, right? Like, the big three would go away, and then we could be on top, and we could be there. But obviously it doesn't quite, like, if you're not actively like seeking to improve every single part of your game, then like if you stay the same, you're getting worse, basically. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of what it is. Like, they're basically where they were at before, but now it's not enough. Like, now they need something extra. So it's like, it's the same. Yeah, Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Rublev.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Those other players like Deminor, Paul, for example, have had to work because they were not good enough. Maybe also at that age, so they kind of have,
yeah, and they were like
more,
steadily improving year after year. Like, you look at Fritz's year
within
and
themselves, this state of mind,
Yeah.
And well, that said, I don't know if you want to mention anything else from Montpellier. You are free to do it. If not, we'll move on to the Davis Cup.
Yeah, I mean, good week for Jesper de Jong, who made the
True.
semis, and he had some very good wins over, like, the Greek Sport win was pretty impressive, and then he that was it was mainly that win that impressed me, because he's playing a fellow countryman, and he
The quarterfinal.
The quarterfinal, yeah,
That's true, actually, because they sort of discouraged Greek Sport, playing very well and steady in the pressure moments of the match. So yeah, that's true. It was a very impressive showing. Actually, he's a little bit unlucky. I mean, unlucky to say, because he, of course, will lose the tournament, the home tournament in Rotterdam, because of course Kovacevic, with a better ranking, he's the one who has earned the special exempt, so he didn't receive a wild card. So yeah, we'll see. There's also an interesting wild card with the draw, and we will talk about it later. Especially, a bit of pressure on him, because the Young didn't get the wild card to favor him. So, but yeah, talking about the Davis Cup, we have a title actually which says "Remarkable Denmark comeback down Serbia in Davis Cup." That's actually an upset, especially considering what maybe the idea of Djokovic probably playing in in the later stages of the tournament. Not really an upset, probably, if we consider the actual teams, but of course, big story, because when Medjedovic beat Rune on Friday night, probably, most of us would probably think that was the key match, and the key moment where Serbia could have won the tie. Actually, watching the players involved in the doubles, I maybe even think the Serbian were a slightly favorite. And then, of course, Rune played very well against Kecmanovic, which is usually a tough matchup for him. See Australian Open, and then the final match.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same thought, like when Medjedovic beat Rune, I was expecting Serbia to pull through, just because of just because how big that win felt, and you thought, okay, I mean, the momentum is on their side a little bit, and they can still come through this even without Djokovic, like you said. So, but then Rune was very focused in his match against Kecmanovic, and he cut down on all those errors, and he just played like very buttoned up, very focused with a clear game plan, like just kind of where he left off in the last two sets when they played in Australia, just with a lot more clarity, but without without having to play like that because he was injured. Instead, he played like it, just from the start. He was just very dialed in. And then what Muller was able to do in the final rubber was pretty extraordinary, right? To come back from the set in a break and basically completely flip the momentum and change the match against Medjedovic.
Yeah, probably. I think the two players that have played the deciding match were more of the story, and because I think with Rune in this weekend, we kind of have seen, both the bads and the goods that we have been watching by himself over the past couple of years. So I don't even know how much of a storyline he is, but I think the two players, Medjedovic, of course, great effort in the first match, but of course, I think disappointed for the way, it ended, especially after that first set. At some point, it felt like there was some sort of no match. But then again, Muller, talking about him, fantastic backhand, for sure.
He's like basically running around his forehand.
His forehand reminds me a little bit of Alison Risk. I don't know if it's just me.
I can see that. I can see it. I see that comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, especially how it ends. But I mean, fantastic moment. Basically, with this tie, we've kind of seen why the Davis Cup can be so epic and so incredible atmosphere and everything. Of course, it's not the only big thing happened in this week, but talking about just Medjedovic, are you expecting something big from him this year? He didn't go to Australia. He stayed in Europe. I personally don't agree with his decision, even though he got to the top 100 thanks to the points he grabbed. But I don't know. For me, missing a Grand Slam is always kind of missing an opportunity. Are you expecting something, more from him in this 25 year, or are you a bit doubtful?
I'm expecting more for sure. I'm pumping the brakes only because like last year was supposed to be that year and it didn't happen for him because mostly because of health, right? But like you watch him play and you're just like, wow, he should be top 50. Not even he should be like, for me, if he can play a consistent schedule, stay healthy, like he should be like around 50 in the world. Like that's like when I watch him play and I see the explosiveness. Like I also see how he can be a little bit up and down. Like emotionally, he still like can be a lot better in terms of how he manages certain situations and matches. But like for like to be like a seed who you don't want to play in the early rounds, he's like kind of that guy right now. So, but it's a little bit like he kind of finished in the Belgrade final, like where he finished a year ago. Like there wasn't much progress in terms of the ranking, but this year I'm expecting more. Like I am expecting him to make that jump. Maybe not to like the very elite, like where where we would expect like the Feast Fonseca Menchik crop to be, but like just around like around where they around like 50ish, I would think.
Yeah, and just continuing with the Davis Cup. I mean, it's probably happened, just a few minutes ago, actually, half an hour ago, more or less. But we had some sort of scenes in the tie between Belgium and Chile, which has been actually a very tight, very tight Davis Cup tie, because yesterday it ended 1-1. The Belgians were favorite in the doubles and won, but then there's been this match between Zizou Bergs and Christian Garin, which actually has, regardless of before this, it was still an incredibly competitive match, 3-set battle, actually 5-all in the third set. So really, really, really close match. I'd say encouraging signs from Garin, a player who's been struggling a lot lately, but probably still has something good in him. It's been actually former world number 17, Wimbledon quarter finalist, and this happened then the changeover. Basically, great shot by Zizou Bergs to break, and celebrating, he runs. He runs towards the bench and hits that way Garin, and then it's been very messy right after, because Bergs and the Belgian bench claimed, of course, the not intentionality of it, and the umpire actually didn't give them him any fault. Garin was on the floor, didn't want to continue the match. Then actually it ended with a game penalty, so the match was over, because 6-5 in the third, so 7-5.
Wow, I've never seen anything like this, to be honest. Oops, I think Mario is frozen.
Yeah, sorry, it's been my connection. Do you have any takes on that, and actually also on the tennis the two teams have played?
I mean, Garin played. Yeah, this is a very good showing for Garin, who's kind of, I haven't really thought about him in a while, actually. So
Yeah.
sometimes he does think he plays a match like this, and all of a sudden I remember, like, oh wow, he's actually been in Wimbledon quarterfinal, and he's actually won 5 titles, and he's like kind of forgotten in this generation. So for him it was good, but that was really quite some drama. I haven't seen anything like that, where someone celebrates and then hits the opponent in the in the process of it, and all of this. But I can understand both sides. I don't really have a strong take or anything, but more just like, just one of those crazy things that happens in tennis that you can't foresee.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually been a Davis Cup weekend with many, many dramas, even if this one tops everything, because, there has been saber-twill with fields. Actually, Denmark and Serbia actually had something between each other, Serbian team. There was a long celebration from Denmark. A Serbian team didn't wait for them. For the handshakes, felt disrespected by the crowd. And so, I mean, and I think, even though, of course, it's not good to watch some of these things happening, but at the same time, it's some sort of a remind that these ties are very good for the competition.
Yeah, the home and away. It was another reminder for me, these dramas, that like the home and away ties are really, really good for tennis. Like
because
I mean,
the episodes themselves are not incredible, especially the drama, especially between Fields and Sabertwill. For me, it wasn't good to watch and everything. But the positive side of all this, it's how alive the Davis Cup feels. When there is the strong crowd involved. And I mean, probably the thing between Fields and Sabertwill would have happened anyway, because it was a matter also of sportsmanship and everything. But yeah, I think like this weekend and all these things happening, kind of reinforced the idea that the home and away ties are, great for the competition.
Yeah, like that is what people miss about the whole old format, right? You go to another nation and you have, you have the home crowd, and you have the, just like the way the crowd is engaged in a match is a completely different level than when you play like on a neutral site and you're playing in Spain and indoors. it's like if Spain is playing, then it's a good atmosphere. But otherwise, apart from that, it's like very, yeah, it's like almost bipartisan, and it's not quite like it doesn't feel like a Davis Cup match. It feels like just a regular tour event. So I like,
Yeah, now of
I like
course
this,
we have
and
the
also,
change,
yeah,
a little
and
bit of
also it's good
change.
for the qualifiers that they've introduced it, and it's best of three, so you still have that. You have best of three, but you have home and away. So I like the combination of both.
Yeah, I feel like best of three was something, that was needed to make it a
Yeah,
bit more, you know, easy
because
for.
especially after the week after the slam, you don't want them playing,
Absolutely. I mean,
best
I
of
don't think
or
many
five
players would
just
have been available. Yeah,
yeah.
especially, players, I don't know, like Rune, who is probably full of playing five setters or something like that. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think another good tie, very good one, even though, it has ended on Friday, so it feels like ages ago. But the one between Norway and Argentina, especially I think because of Norway, where of course Casper Ruud did great job, winning his matches, and there was Nikolai Budkov who played incredibly well. 3 hours and 49 against somebody who physically is a monster like Echeverri. And then the day after, he held up very well against Navone. Then, I mean, at the end, he couldn't finish the job. Navone, of course, had plenty of energies left. Great also for him because it was his first ever Davis Cup appearance. So, getting the deciding win also was a big story for Navone himself. What about this Budkov Kier? Have you watched
Yeah,
his
I've
match
watched.
in Davis Cup? There's something in particular you have thought about him?
I want to see him more. I want to see him more like outside of Davis Cup to get a proper feel for it. But I was impressed by his effort physically in the match against Echeverry because he was really hanging with him from the baseline. He was almost beating him at his own game at times. So that was pretty impressive to see because he's like you said, like Echeverry is a physical beast. Like that guy can run and play for hours and hours and with the same type of ball on the forehand and backhand, but also just he can he makes a living playing matches like this. So for Jair to basically go toe to toe with him on that and cramping also at like 5-6 in the third, like it looked bad, it looked like he may not be able to finish. So for him to even win that next game, get it to a tie break, get as close as he did, and then hold up pretty well physically the next day, that was yeah, that looks like that's not easy to do. So that there must be there must be more to him than I'm giving him credit for right now because I haven't seen enough of him to be honest. But in that match, I was impressed by his durability and
Yeah,
his.
I get what you say about the Davis Cup because it's also a sort of environment where you tend to overdo, a
Yeah,
little bit. Also physically, if you have even one little thing left in the tank, you throw it on the court. But yeah, for sure, another great storyline. Of course, Davis Cup isn't even finished because I think Diallo has just won, so we have the deciding singles match between Galarno and Fucovic, Canada against Hungary to decide the this final Davis Cup tie. But I think we can look a little bit of what it's going to happen next week because these are probably my favorite weeks of the year where we have two 500 events. Of course, Dallas, which is a new one. I think we can start looking a little bit there. Last year Tommy Paul won the title. Of course, it was a 250 tournament, so for example, even reaching the final he would earn more points than what he will lose. And kind of an interesting field because I feel like most things can happen. There's Fritz, who has had a disappointing Australian Open campaign, so probably would be eager to do big things in these tournaments. Of course, Paul is the defending champion, his first tournament as a top 10 player. Casper Ruud playing as the number 2 seed. Ben Shelton, US Open semi-finalist. But many players that can do really well, actually. For example, I don't know, potential clash between Shapovalov and Fritz in the second round. What are you most excited about from this tournament?
Yeah, obviously Taylor goes in as a favorite to win, these type of tournaments now, like Dallas and Del Rey, and this is where you expect him to go pretty deep, win the title even. Like, I think you can have that expectation, but then there's also a lot of good players. Like Mahach is also there for him in the quarterfinals if he gets there. Like right away, you have Mahach and Nishikori, for instance. That already is very good. You have, though there's basically a bunch of Americans that are doing well, like Mickelson, and you have even like Opelka coming. Opelka is a wild card, I think. So is Brooksby. Brooksby is also like coming back now, and he's
Yeah, it was a
we'll
little
see
bit
if
unlucky with the draw.
yeah
But
he's playing Tommy, so that's obviously very not a good draw for him right now. But honestly, if we could see Tommy and Taylor play in the semis, that would be really good. Tommy is now in top 10 player, so that's big for him now. We have two Americans in the top 10. Shelton as well, like
very
fourth seed.
close.
Yeah, he's also somebody who is who can be around 10 in the world now. So
Shelton can attack the top 10 actually after the Australian Open big
Yeah.
result. Now he's 13. Plenty of hardcore tournaments coming where he should feel really comfortable. So I think like he has a shot in this upcoming week. Of course, he will need, of course, great results to do. There's also, of course, Tiafo. I mean, always these tournaments with many Americans. Ruud has a tough opening round against Garin. Last year, he really pushed Tommy Paul in the final. So, well, yeah, I mean, Davidovich Fokina had a great Australian Open. So who knows? Maybe he'll be in the mix. He will have something to say. Nishikori. Nishikori used to do pretty well in these tournaments.
yeah, he did. He won this tournament in 2008 or something, right? Or that was maybe Delray Beach, I think he won. But yeah, similar type of
I think it was probably this one. But yeah, I mean, these are two tournaments that he's always played really, really well, basically feeling like at home. And we can understand why. So yeah, I mean, this is Dallas, and then we have Rotterdam, another very interesting tournament. The defending champion won't be there, of course, Australian Open champion Yannick Sinner. Last year he played despite winning the Australian Open. Probably this week having Doha as a 500 event. Of course, it's the best schedule for him, and this means there is Alcaraz, of course, playing Van de Zandschulp in the first round. Alcaraz comes from, let's say, disappointing Australian Open still. I mean, with him, basically anything but the title is a disappointment. But probably even the match itself was some sort of a disappointment from his point of view. So, big week for him. There's Medvedev. I feel like with him, we are a little bit like in 23, even if, I mean, parallels are not really good, in my opinion, between him in 23 and him now, but still is some sort of a similar position than where he was. Early exit at the Australian Open, rankings starting to suffer a little bit. What's the big storyline for you
very
this
similar.
tournament?
It's pretty similar because he was 12 in the world after Australian Open in 2023. He loses in the third round, and then he goes on a tear in February, and then he wins those three tournaments in Doha, Rotterdam, Dubai. He wins all three. I'll be very surprised if he goes on a run like that again. But there's those. But he's but like he's loaded up his schedule in February, and you think like there's going to be two tournaments there without Sinner and Alcaraz, and maybe like that's his time that he can win those titles. He hasn't won a title since Rome 2023. I know it's like not the biggest thing for his resume and stuff because of everything he's achieved, but confidence-wise, it could be big. So confidence-wise,
Touching
it's
the trophy, that
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah.
I feel like for a tennis player, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah,
Even a
yeah,
small
just like-
tournament, anything.
just winning anything gives you so much confidence. So if he can, with this seeding, he's still expected to get to the final, right? So if he can do that and then play a good match against Carlos, if Carlos is there, then that's already a pretty big. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, he
But
also
let's get there.
avoided, one of these players in the first 2 rounds where you think like, he may really,
Yeah.
go out early if he doesn't really play 100%. So he can also build a little bit in this tournament.
Yeah.
There's Tsitsipas, who is another player who really needs wins. Deminor, probably the most informed player of this side of the draw, the bottom half. But actually many dangerous players. Are you interested in some first round match? Where would you turn on the stream for round one?
There's a lot of actually pretty good round ones. I mean, I would still actually want to watch Medvedev and Wawrinka, just because Wawrinka, like early rounds of tournament, or like first or second rounds of 250s and 500s, he's been playing much better than then later on. If you'd like if you want to see a good stand match, you'll probably see it in the first round. And he beat Medvedev in 2022 in the fall, when it was like when Medvedev was still on the downward trajectory. So I kind of want to still see that. And then I want to see I still want to see Alcaraz against Bodek again after the US Open. Because that's, I mean, in terms of like the draw itself, Carlos doesn't really have it that easy, right? Because he plays Bodek and then Felix, who's in form most likely, Runa, who can be dangerous indoors, and then, maybe potentially, Rublev or Hurkacz or some, I actually think like the early 2 rounds are like the trickiest for Carlos. If he can get through those, then he should be the favorite after that, like pretty decidedly. But it'll be interesting to see because he hasn't played Rotterdam before. He would like to win a title again after only winning one after Wimbledon in Beijing, but apart from that, he hasn't really won any other. So I think it could be big for him, just confidence wise.
I think as a final question, as also our producer is reminding us, there's a little change in Medvedev's team. Of course, it's Servara will stay there at least for now. But of course, the collab with Gilles Simon ended, not truly great results. Do you think he's thinking? I mean, we can guess right now, but do you think he will hire somebody else to try to do what Simon should have done to his game? Do you think he would need more of a big change, probably even changing the main coach, or even just a second figure can be enough for him? Do you have any thought in particular about his team and what he would need, and also the split with Simon?
The split with Simon didn't surprise me because they weren't getting the results they wanted.
Yeah.
So that's pretty simple. But ultimately he's looking for that balance right now between adding more power in his shots, but also still keeping what made him really good as a player, which was basically be a human backboard from the baseline. And I don't know, for Medvedev right now, it feels like it's all about confidence and serving. If you can serve like the way he did in 2021, and like if he can do that, then he has a chance to get back to where he was at before. But without that serve being a weapon, it's so much harder for him right now to, like he doesn't naturally produce the same kind of pace as a lot of the other top players. So he basically has to rely on physicality and court smarts. So right now, and Simone is good for the court smarts, and he's good for like the pace absorbing, like that type of style. I could see how that was why Medvedev would want him there a year ago. But now at this point, I think maybe he's better off just stick with Servara for now, and then see how it goes. And then if the results don't improve like in the next few months, then maybe you think about
I get what you mean.
else. But like the Servara is always the guy who understands Medvedev the best, right? Sometimes I think with all the best players, like the big names and the super coaches get most of the credit, but actually it's like the coach who stuck around with the player for the longest, right? Like in the big three examples.
Yeah, and also I think
for Federer or Marian Vida for Djokovic, and then even Tony Nadal.
Also, one thing is hiring somebody new and started doing something new when your confidence is a little bit higher, maybe. Probably can also be a little bit disruptive at times if your confidence is incredibly low. I don't know, of course, on Twitter, even in the comments, of course, right now everybody's shouting at Goran Ivanisevic. I don't know who is, he's tough to predict, Goran, I mean, because, we don't really know which kind of profile he is searching. Probably Medvedev can be even an idea given his age, not a really long time collaboration. But yeah, I think it's early. We'll see. For sure, in these months, we are expecting, an answer, especially in the Sunshine Double. In the last couple of years, he did really well there. So we'll see. He should be able to do well this year as well. At least we are expecting that. Of course, if he, because I still think, of course, he is a player who can end the year in the top 10. I'm not really, thinking that as he has become so bad, that, he's starting falling and falling and falling. Of course, we need, answers because the other players won't stay looking at things happening, of course, and, we'll keep improving.
Yeah, for me, I'm not worried about him dropping out of the top 10 or anything like that. I still see him as a top player.
Very tough to beat, regardless. That's the idea I have.
Yeah. And also maybe the Australian Open, I'm willing to give him a little bit of a pass, mostly because I don't think his preparation was super ideal with his, having, birth of his child, and then also just, I don't think it was the best. He didn't arrive to Australia, I think, like 3 or 4 days before the tournament started. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, now he wants to play actually because he took a wild card for the 250 in Marseille, actually, the week after Rotterdam. So yeah, we'll see. I think probably he's even a bit more of a storyline than Alcaraz this week, at least in terms of the tennis landscape. I mean, then of course for the big public, Alcaraz is always the biggest storyline of more or less every tournament. Well, I don't know if you want to touch something else.
Let's see. I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, I repeat that the week is not even over because Davis Cup is still going on. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest storylines we kind of did it. I mean, Spain, just quick words. Are you surprised a little bit with Spain winning so easily on the Swiss soil, especially with players who are not the maybe the most indoor hardcourts are not the biggest surface for each of them, at least those who were present and played?
Yeah, a little bit. I was surprised that they won everything. Like they won all the matches. I was expecting them to lose at least a couple of those. So a little bit. Were you?
This is of course a huge result because especially because this means of course Alcaraz can be part of the competition in the later stages. So well, I thank you a lot. It's been an unbelievable pleasure to talk to you, and I also thank everybody in the comments, everybody listening. Of course, you have to subscribe and to keep helping us grow, to letting us produce more and more content. And yeah, I just wish everybody a nice day or night, whatever, and see you soon on the channel. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.